This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio. Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for checking out Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Celebrity Reflection today, a 4-night Bahamas cruise from Port Canaveral. Also, staff writer Richard Sims on deck with news. Jumping to him now. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug Parker.
As the Alaska season closes down, at least one ship left with passengers receiving something a little extra.
Yeah, that's right. It's a souvenir that nobody wants, but I suspect pretty much everyone listening, if they've cruised a lot, has probably taken home at some point, and that's a little bit of gastrointestinal discomfort. According to the CDC, Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Sea had about 8% of the passengers and 3% of the crew fall ill during the ship's final sailing of the Alaska season. I'm not great with math, but luckily the CDC does it for us, so we can say that there were 2,172 guests on board, and of those, 180 reported feeling ill, and 3 of the 894 crew members fell ill. So, here's the thing. If this had happened on land, no one would hear about it. If my company got hit with this type of gastrointestinal disease and it was that percentage of people, it was 8% of people, nobody would know anything about it. But as regular listeners know, the threshold for reporting to the CDC, if you're a cruise ship, is 3%. So this was 8%. It was well above what, the requirement that they report it to the CDC. It probably was neurovirus. That hasn't actually been confirmed as we're recording this, but that seems most likely. So far this year, 7 out of the 10 times that there was a outbreak of gastrointestinal issues that was reported to the CDC, 7 out of 10 times it was neuro. So, we don't know for sure, but that seems the most likely culprit.
And while we're talking about Alaska, let's discuss this latest port to slap on a new charge to arriving cruise passengers.
That's right. You can add Haines, Alaska to the ever-growing list of ports which are upping their fees. Now, if you don't know Haines, that's okay. It's not one of those better-known stops. When you think of Alaska, you think of Ketchikan and Juneau and places like that. This is an absolutely gorgeous spot about 100 miles north of Juneau, and it's probably best known as the home to a bald eagle lake sanctuary and reserve. About 100 ships visited there in 2023. We don't have 2024 numbers yet because the season just closed. But 2023, about 100 ships went there, and they brought about 70,000 passengers. Starting next year, those guests will be charged $9 per person. And that's true whether the ship docks or whether it is a ship that anchors offshore and then tenders people. If you're on a ship that's stopping in Haines, Alaska, starting next year, you will be paying $9. And that will go up in the coming years. Right now, they basically have a plan to raise it every 2 years. So it'll go to $12 per person in 2027 and then $13 per person in 2029. Now, I just did that math in my head, despite saying earlier that I wasn't a math person, and I realized that jumping from 9 now to 12 in 2027 is not an increase of $2. That's $3. But after that, it's $2 every year, assuming that they stick with this plan. And as always, this is going to, local infrastructure and maintaining the port. And from what I can tell, up until now, they have not had a fee, which is unusual. Every port, you go, you see the port taxes on every cruise. Most people will not notice this, however, because as we know, earlier this year, they introduced that new legislation that basically any port fees and taxes have to be included in the overall price. Mm-hmm. So as these prices go up, as it goes from 9 to 12 to 13, you won't really notice because it'll be included as, if you look at the breakdown, it'll say it, but the actual price you're looking at will not indicate it. So just so you know.
So they must have recently being added. They must have recently voted on this because we discussed this earlier this year about this coming into play. So I guess it's finalized now, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. It's one of the it's happening in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, this is all part of the overall picture we've been talking about a lot, where over tourism is concerned in general, and with the cruise industry in particular. These various locations are trying to find ways to, depending on how you look at it, they're either trying to find ways to make more money off of cruisers, or they're looking for ways to say, hey, you guys use a lot of our infrastructure. You come here and it's kind of an inconvenience for us, so we deserve to be paid for that.
Okay, so this next story we have here, I want to give it some context before I actually jump into it, because NCL basically revamped their Free at Sea program, and it sparked a lot of controversy and a few emails to comments at cruiseradio.net. And Alyssa wrote, in my humble opinion, Free at Sea was anything but free. I gave them a try, but I won't sail with them again. So with all that said, they rolled out this new program. What is it all about, and how different is it from Free at Sea?
That is a fair accusation that she makes, because while it is sort of sold as, hey, look at all this stuff you get for free, it's not entirely free, because you do pay the taxes and gratuities and stuff like that. So it is not free. She's making a very good point there. But I still will admit that I'm very stoked by this story. I've always liked the Free at Sea program, even with the the fees that are attached. I have not been sailing NCL of late, because I've had other things to try, and I've been a little disappointed in some decisions they've made. But this new program has me looking at them again for the future. So previously, when you booked with NCL, you got what they called Free at Sea perks, and these perks were pretty good. They ranged from, a certain number of meals in specialty restaurants to drink packages and more. The new program is called More at Sea. And I feel like that's not as catchy a name. Like Free at Sea is a catchy name. More at Sea is, could use some workshopping. But it's appropriate, because the new program takes all the things that worked about the original perks program and amps them up a bit. So, for example, it used to be that guests would get the drinks package. It was a basic drinks package. But if you wanted, say, Grand Marnier or Casa Amigo, something like that, that was not covered completely by your drinks package. So you could either, if you were to drink a lot of that, you could buy a premium drink package, or you could pay the difference between, let's say the drink package covered $12 and the drink was $14, you would pay the additional $2. So that's how it worked in the past. But now they are folding almost all of the liquors on board. About 90% of the things you can drink on board, including, things like Casamiga and other, I say that because that happens to be the thing I drink the most, and other top shelf stuff is all being folded into this program. About 90% of the liquors on board will now fall into the More at Sea drink package program. And they also made changes to the specialty restaurant. So when you look at a 7-day sailing, because how much you get depends on what category stateroom you're staying in and how long you are at sea. So, for example, if you're doing a 7-day sailing on Norwegian in a balcony with this new program, you get 3 specialty meals on a 7-night trip. Of course, things change, like I said, depending on how long you're going to be on the ship, that kind of thing. But what I think a lot of people are going to kind of love about this is that they are redefining what a meal consists of within the package. It used to be that if you used one of your specialty dining credits in, say, Cagney's, you got like an appetizer, a salad, an entree, and a dessert. Well, now, when you use one of your specialty dining coupons, you can get 3 appetizers, a soup and salad, an entree, and up to 3 desserts. I mean, that's insane. That is a lot of food. And a lot of people are going to take advantage of it. I'm fascinated by this decision in an age when we've seen so many places limiting what you can get in a restaurant. This is actually an expansion of that. Now, the one thing that will cost you extra with a meal is if you want an extra entree. Those you have to buy at the a la carte price that's listed on the menu. But I mean, if you're eating 3 appetizers, 3 desserts, soups, salads, and a main course, I am ashamed of you if you order a second entree. Okay, let's just say that right here, right now. As it was before, these packages come with an automatic gratuity attached, which is what the listener was talking about when they said, it's not really free. And if you're doing a 7-night sailing, so I did a couple of test bookings. I did these bookings on 7-night aft facing balconies. And the first time I did the bookings, I did it before the More at Sea program kicked in and looked to see what the additional fees were. And then I did those same exact bookings again once they rolled out the More at Sea to get an idea of how much change there was. And there is definitely an increase in the price. With the drink package, it's going up by about $50 per person where the fees and gratuities are concerned. And the dining package went up about $20 per person. So yes, you are going to be paying a little bit more. You're also going to be getting more. So it really just depends on whether, you're a fan of this program. Like I said, I think it's a really kind of great program because I always get a drink package. And it is, to me, worth I think on a 7-day sailing, the taxes and gratuities on the drink package came out to $400. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, that is $400. That is nothing to be sneezed at, but it is cheaper than if you buy an actual drink package. So, you have to balance it all out in your head and figure out what's worth it and what's not for you as an individual.
And speaking of money, Carnival Corporation had a pretty good quarter.
They did. But before we get to that, let me just back up 1 second, because I a minute ago said that it came out to like $400 for the drink package. That is for 2 people. So forgive me. It's actually about $200, I believe, in additional fees on a 7-night sailing. But now we'll jump ahead to Carnival. And as you said, they had a pretty spectacular quarterly report. I mean, I can't even comprehend what I'm about to say. But the cruise line, and remember, this isn't just Carnival Cruise Line, it's Carnival Corporation. So it encompasses Carnival, Holland America, Princess, Costa, a bunch of others. They reported $1.7 billion in profit. That's a billion with a B. Let me say that again. $1.7 billion. Profits were up 60% year over year, which is just astounding. And certainly, if you look back 3 years to when no money was coming in and we were worried that cruise lines might actually go under and they were selling off ships, and to suddenly be here in 2024 with these kind of profits is kind of amazing. The CEO of the company, Josh Weinstein, attributed the company's success to heightened demand, cost-saving initiatives, and enhanced onboard experiences. Now, what that translates to is more people wanted to book, which means they could charge more, so they got higher prices, and they found new ways for you to spend money once you were on board. That's sort of what he's saying in a nutshell. And it's not just 2024. Things are looking really good for next year as well. They report that nearly half of their available capacity is already booked for 2025. That would not be unusual if we were in December, January, in wave season, basically. But we're not. We're in October and just barely in October, and they have already sold half of their inventory for 2025. So that's kind of crazy. And keep in mind, the other reason 2025 is going to look so great is they have all kinds of new things coming up, which will only serve to drive demand. They've got the Sun Princess and the Star Princess and Celebration Key and on and on and on. So yeah, the future for Carnival is pretty bright. So bright they have to wear shades, which they will sell you in the onboard gift shop at a slight markup.
19 ships are going to Celebration Key, which was kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Like 19 ships of their 27 going to Celebration, and 2 of their ships aren't even in the U.S. So that's just wild to me that only 6 ships.
Crazy. Yeah. I'll be interested to see. I think Celebration Key will be sort of like MSC's Ocean Key in that we're going to see an evolution. Mm-hmm. There will be a massive difference between what is available when it first opens and what is available, a year or 2 down the line. I'm actually heading to Ocean Key Marine Reserve in 2 weeks. It'll be my first time on MSC, and it'll be my first time at Ocean Key, and I'm traveling in the yacht club. So I'm looking forward to seeing. They just, they closed the island down a couple months ago to make some changes, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have changed, what they're still working on, that kind of thing. But I think we'll see the exact same thing at Celebration Key. Like, there's huge plans for down the line.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more modest if you look at what's being opened next summer.
Another cruise line slaps a ban on something. So last week we heard about Carnival updating their banned and prohibited items on ships for that Starlink receiver. This week, Royal Caribbean caused a bit of a stir by adding an item to their list.
You know what? This story is about to go in a direction that's a little bit different than what you probably thought and what you and I discussed before the show. It started when Matt and Abby Howard posted a vlog about how they were on a Royal Caribbean cruise and they went out to dinner and they used a baby monitor to keep an eye on their children while they were out to dinner. So that's how it started. And this blew up into, lots of people calling them bad parents and lots of criticism and, this shouldn't be allowed, blah, blah, blah. The cruise line obviously saw this as well. And they said, we can't have this. Not because it's a bad parenting technique, but because baby monitors could interfere with some of the vital ship communication that goes on. So they added baby monitors to the banned list. So you'd think that's where the story ends, but it's not, because what ended up happening was Matt and Abby went back and deleted their original video because they were getting so much negativity about it. And they actually released a new video in which they explained that they basically apologized for sending out sort of misinformation. They did not leave their children alone with a baby monitor. There was a member of the family there with them as well. But they explained that when they travel, and I've heard of other people doing this as well, they use it's kind of like a blackout box. It's sort of like a little tent that the kids sleep in that blocks out light and sound and stuff like that. And in the top of it, there is a space for a baby monitor. And that is what they were using. They had the baby monitor on so they could check on the baby at dinner. But the kids were not alone. They were in the room and in their black box within the room with a member of the family. So the kids were never alone. This wasn't a case of bad parenting. I mean, we see a lot of that out there, but that wasn't the case here. So it was kind of interesting that what started out as being a story that kind of got attention and wound up having baby monitors added to the banned list also turned out to be an example of, be careful what you post on social media and know exactly what it is you're putting out there. Look at it through the eyes of someone who does not know you so that you can say, oh, it kind of looks like we abandoned our kids. We should probably make it clear that's not what happened. So it's one of the lessons to be learned here about social media.
All right, the Vie Odyssey update. You've been tracking it for the past year. What's the latest?
Oh my God, this ship. So, if you've been following any of this story, you know that this is the residency, the Vie Odyssey, that is supposed to be going on like a 3.5 year tour. But so far, for the first 4 months of its journey, has been sitting basically in Belfast. For a while, people were allowed to go there during the day, and then they had to go to hotels at night, which were paid for by Villa Vie until a couple weeks ago when Villa Vie said, yeah, we can't afford to pay for this anymore, so you're on your own. So some people did decide to stay in hotels on their own, trusting that it would only be for a week or two. Others abandoned ship, so to speak, and went back to their homes or friends of homes, because a lot of them had already sold their homes. So last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, they were told, yes, we're sailing. Come back. Get on board. You can stay on board. You can sleep on board. We're sailing. And sure enough, the ship set sail for a couple of hours. Then it turned around and headed back to port. They said that there was some paperwork that hadn't been properly filled out. It turns out there's like a hairline fracture in the ship's hull, apparently, that needs to be dealt with. Now, how they got this far in the process without discovering this, I don't know. The last reports we had from Dave Monk, who kind of tracks ships and gives us updates on where everything is, as of Wednesday afternoon, they had posted a schedule that they were going to go to Brest, France. But we still don't know. As we're recording this, they have not left. They are scheduled to leave It's a little confusing as to when, because there's a big time difference between Belfast and the United States. But I just checked the Twitter feeds of some of the people on board whose adventures we've been following, and they don't seem to have left yet. There's another update as well. We've also talked about how several people were booted from the ship despite having bought staterooms because they had been deemed basically negative presences in the various social media outlets used by the passengers. Like, they had a WhatsApp group, and apparently these people were very negative and they were asked to leave. At least one of them is currently in negotiations to return. There are two different people that we know of who were booted off the ship, both of whom say they still have belongings on the ship, which they haven't been able to claim. One of them is in negotiations right now that they are hoping will end in them being able to return to the ship, not only to claim their possessions, but to stay on board. So, as always, there's so much more to this story yet to unfold, and I'm sure we will be checking in again next week to see where things stand.
And question of the week comes from Amanda, who asks, I have a cruise coming up. Do I need to worry about the dock workers strike, which is currently unfolding at ports across the U.S.?
In a word, no. I can see why people would worry about this. When we think of dock workers, we assume that it also includes the people who take our baggage and put it on board and that kind of thing. This strike is not, at least at this point, this strike is not in any way impacting the cruise industry. It is focused entirely on cargo ships and the loading and unloading of cargo ships. That is not to say this couldn't at some point become a problem, whether it's because ships start backing up because of, a lack of workers to take the materials off the ship, or if at some point, I suppose it's possible that the cruise dock workers could, in solidarity, say, you know what, we're going on strike too. But I don't see that happening. The head of one of the dock workers unions put out a statement basically saying, listen, we know how important this is. We know how important cruising is. We know that families plan their vacations and spend a lot of money, and we have no desire to interrupt that. So as far as we know, there is no reason to be concerned. If that changes, obviously we'll let you know, although I think the cruise line will probably let you know too if that happens. But I don't think you have anything to worry about, Amanda.
Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, bud.
As always, glad to be here.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug@cruiseradio.net.
It's not often we have guests in the studio, but my buddy Scott Lara just returned from a 4-night cruise on Celebrity Reflection, and he joins us to talk all about it. And by the way, if you're ever driving by on 95 and want to stop in and say hello, Jason's been over here, Scott, John from out west. I'm acting like I'm name dropping like you know all these people. Feel free to drop me a line if you're ever coming through Jackson. I'd love to have a chat with you on air or just in the studio. Anyway, how are you, Scott?
Doug, great to see you, my friend.
Before we get started here, I do want to say we both lost a friend.
Yes.
Arthur Crofted from Light 96.1 WEJZ. He was not only a friend, but he was one of the voice guys here at Cruise Radio. I worked with him my last 7 years in radio here in Jacksonville every day for 7 years straight, and it was just never a dull moment, so our heart goes out to his family.
Absolutely, Doug. As you mentioned, we worked at the radio station together, and Arthur was like a morning guy. He was originally from England, lived here in the U.S., and just was a mentor to me, a friend to me, and to you. And we really honor him this morning. Just a great guy.
And he loved cruising too.
He did.
He loved Cunard.
Yeah, and he also back in the day at the radio station, they had a sponsorship thing or a thing, cruising with Crofton on Holland America.
He also loves celebrity, so we'll just make this interview about him today and transition to your cruise. You just returned. You're here in Jacksonville. Do you typically drive down the night before, or is that a day of thing for you?
I tell you, the number one thing I've always said is never go day of, if either you're flying or if you're driving, because something's going to happen. The weather, something. And so we drove down the day before from Jacksonville down to Port Everglades. It was about a 5-hour drive. And we stayed at the Fairfield Inn and Suites, cruise port and airport. Doug, you can actually throw a rock at the airport. And of course, the cruise port is just right down the way from there. So we drove down. They did provide transportation too. I got free parking. But the thing is that we caught a cab coming back, which was a very good choice.
Remember the hotel? I'm not going to say the name of it, but remember the hotel we stayed at in Port Everglades, like close to Fort Lauderdale, I guess, about 15 years ago.
For the audience, you're hearing a backstage joke here. Years ago, Doug and I sailed on the Celebrity Solstice together when it first came out. And I got to thank Doug for inviting me to go with him. We had a great time. It was great seeing the first Solstice class ship.
That was putting a chair under the door to make sure no one would come in. That was some wild times there. So you make your way from the hotel to the cruise port. How was the boarding process?
That is a very good question, because just like you got your boarding pass, right? Online. And it says, okay, your boarding time is 12:30. Well, the shuttle left at 10:15. So I'm going, oh my gosh, are they going to make us wait outside? Are they going to be a jerk about it? We get there about 10:30, quarter to 11. And they said, go on right up the escalator. You've seen the videos on YouTube, Terminal 25, going up the escalator. And let me just say this. This is a free hidden gem. Print out your boarding pass. Don't just have it on your phone. Something's going to go wrong, the tech, whatever. So I always print out my boarding passes, right? So I showed the person the boarding passes. We went in. They let us sit down. And within 15 minutes, we were on the ship. Actually asked one of the staff there, who were very kind. I said, listen, no, please go ahead. It's okay. And we don't want you to have to, if it was raining or this, we want you to be comfortable. And everyone was just so nice, so gracious. And they did not say, no, you got the wrong time. You're here too early. Go away.
Is T25 the one where that was built for like Celebrity Edge and Apex and beyond?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is total branded Celebrity, just like Virgin Voyages has their branded terminal. This is their branded terminal. And what's interesting too, Doug, I had a small little roll carry-on, and they said, hey, don't go up the escalator, go up the elevator. Went over to the left, got on the elevator, boom, we were up there.
You make your way on board Celebrity Reflection. I'm getting all these Solstice ships confused. What were your first impressions? I mean, it's been 14, 15 years since your last one.
Remembering when you and I sailed together, it just all kind of came back to me. Yes, that tree, the library, the internet area, and everything. But the one thing I wanted to point out was about the muster drill, because that's the one thing I know you and I and others say, get that muster drill out of the way so that you can go ahead and start enjoying your vacation. Well, we were up on deck 8, balcony cabin, and you have to go up to your cabin to get your room key, so you can start charging stuff. Well, when I boarded with my wife, I said, hey, can I use my boarding pass to go ahead and show to the crew member so we can get the muster drill out of the way? And even before we got on the ship, we watched a couple videos on the app at the hotel. One video was talking about the muster procedure, and the second video was about, the 6 short blasts and the one long blast. You watch those videos, click, and then the third part of it is, actually talking to the crew member and him or her showing you their life vest and blowing the whistle and the light. So I knew that our muster station was the lounge right there as you get in to the left on deck 5. So we went right over there. I had my paper boarding passes, the ensemble lounge, and showed him my boarding passes. He talked to Marty and I for 2 minutes, and we were off to the races.
So how does it work with Celebrity? Because you said you had to take the elevator with your carry-on luggage. Some cruise lines let you drop it off and some don't. How was that?
Oh, man, That's another reason why Celebrity is my new favorite cruise line, because we were able to drop, it was like 11:15. We drop off the luggage and the cabin steward comes by and goes, "Oh, Mr. Lara, no, the cabin's done, good to go. You can stay." And that made a world of difference.
And speaking of dropping off your luggage, like what kind of cabin did you have for your cruise and what did you think of it throughout the week?
Cabin number 8304. It was an aft balcony cabin on the starboard side. Absolutely perfect. You know, you and I have talked about these infinite balconies. Well, my wife and I like the old school balcony where you're actually sitting out there with a couple chairs, a table, maybe ordering breakfast. And so it was a old school balcony. It was absolutely perfect. There was lots of rooms. They had what I call the capsule shower, where like if you've been on these other cruise ships, like, oh my gosh, even if you're thin, you know, it's tough getting in that shower, but it has the capsule. There's plenty of storage space in the bathroom. Now, the one thing I will say, because it is old school, you don't have to put your card key right there by the door to keep the lights on. It has an old school thermostat, just left and right. And there aren't very many plugs. So it's like 2 US plugs and 1 European plug. So if you're a techie like you and I are, Doug, you definitely want to make sure that you're going to have enough outlets to be able to charge your stuff.
I like how you put your hands on your chest and said, even if you're thin, and pointed to yourself. Like, okay. Tell me about the food. Like, did you immediately go up to the Ocean View Cafe, which is there at Lido Deck?
Yes. You know me. I'm going to go right to the food. I told Marty, let's go. So Ocean View Cafe. And if you remember this during Solstice, they have these different, like 6 or 8 different stations. You got salad, you got burgers, you got the ice cream. It's really well laid out, unlike other ships will remain nameless. This was just perfectly laid out. It wasn't really crowded because we got there early. We had something to eat. And the super secret tip I can give people is go to the very back. There's an area outside. And so you're away from the crowd, you're getting some fresh air, and it's a very nice area to sit in for eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Did you know the capacity your ship was sailing?
It can hold like 3,300 people. There's only 3,000 people on the ship when we sailed September 16 through 20, and there were less than 100 kids on board.
Okay, gotcha. So then it wasn't super packed at the Lido. You were able to get a seat when you wanted. And does that class of ship have dining on the outside, like by the pool or in the aft area, like any kind of terraces or anything?
No, not really. I mean, the only kind of a terrace you would say is aft, the very back of the ship.
Mm-hmm. But you could bring your plate out there if you wanted 100%. To and dine outside. Okay. Yes. And then let's talk about the main dining room, which I remember our first time when we walked into the Celebrity Solstice, I think it was the Opus dining room.
Yep.
And there wasn't there that 2-deck like wine fixture with like thousands of bottles in there?
It's Doug, it's so funny because I walked in there and thought about it. This thing is huge. I mean, I don't know what Transformers, whatever kind of a movie you want to think of, but this 2-story silver thing, and if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know it. But if you get up closer to it, there's hundreds of bottles of wine in there. And I think when you and I sailed on Solstice, we actually took a tour where we went through the ladder and went up and down. But it's a very cool thing. You got to get a picture of it. But the Opus dining room, that's correct. That's the main dining room. And I'll tell you, we did not go to any specialty restaurants. I wanted to go to Tuscan Grill. The wife said no. But we ate every night at the Opus dining room. The service was spot on. We got there every night about 5:45. One night we were able to get a window that the wife likes, but if you don't get there early, that's game over. But I'll tell you, Doug, they had beef Wellington one night, and you can't get beef Wellington everywhere. And it was a great treat. You know, the French onion soup, the escargot, all the meals were on a scale of 1 to 10, a 20. Absolutely great. As a guy who's been married 40 years, you want your wife to feel it too. And she loved the feel of the ship. She really enjoyed it. And she said, I want to come back.
That's always a good thing to hear from the wife. So you didn't do any specialty restaurants, you said, but how about any grab and goes around the ship? They have like maybe a grill by the pool or coffee places or anything like that?
That's a good question. It's called the Mast Grill. And if you're in a rush, you go up to the Mast Grill. I think it's on deck 12, if I'm not mistaken. Burgers, hot dogs, condiments. There's a soft serve machine up there for the ice cream. So the Mast Grill is something you definitely want to go to when you just want that grab and go.
So how the entertainment stack up over the 4 nights?
Well, I looked at the entertainment and none of it really grabbed me. And you know me, Doug. I mean, I will go to the shows. I mean, the rock shows like on Carnival and even on MSC, you know, they've got some great shows. But the entertainment, nothing grabbed me. So we did not go to any of the shows. The cruise director, Luigi, nice guy, very approachable, very friendly. You know, he mentioned there was like a brand new show that had come on board, but we just didn't take advantage of it.
How about any kind of music around the ship or the bars or like in that little atrium where the martini bar is, anything like that?
Yes, there was. And that's the one thing, Doug, I put on my survey that I was really disappointed in. And talking about surveys, for folks that cruise, the cruise lines really want those surveys. They want the good, bad, and ugly because that's the only way they're going to be able to change it. When we came out of that Opus dining room, right there is that lobby. And there's a DJ there, or they'll have like the silent disco, or they'll have, singers or dancers, whatever. But every night we walked out, if they were playing Elton John, if they were playing ABBA, it was deafening. I mean, it was very, very loud. And I talked to one of the senior crew members and I said, you need to go down there with a darn, decimeter or something and hear this, because it just was not comfortable to be able to sit down there and relax and have a drink or talk. You couldn't talk, because you couldn't hear over anybody, that the music was so loud. So that was my one rock I'd want to throw, is they need to look at that.
During the 4 nights, which you left on a Monday and returned on a Friday, it sounds like, what were the ports of call?
Perfect day at CocoCay. And again, that all depends on the weather, right? We had absolutely perfect weather. And we've all heard the meteorologists, El Nino, oh my gosh, all death and destruction. It's the worst hurricane season. From the September 16th to the 20th, it was absolutely perfect weather. The seas were like glass, and I'm a Navy veteran, and it was great. Perfect day at CocoCay, got off the ship very early, and the thing is, there's free things to do, and there's other things to do that's going to cost money. And I do have to do this. Google Mr. Beast Private Island. He's got a video, $1 island to a $250 million island. And he went to CocoCay, did a lot of fun stuff there. So check that out. But we took the free tram, and the third stop was the South Beach. And at South Beach, it's free. So we had burgers and hot dogs, and we had fruit juices, all free. And there's lots of people that are sedentary. They just want to sit around. But at Perfect Day at CocoCay, South Beach, they have pickleball. They have basketball, lots of free things to do there if you're not sedentary. And also you can rent a jet ski if you want to. But stop number 3 at CocoCay is the place to go.
How was the food on the island?
Amazing food. The burgers were great. The hot dogs were great. They had great French fries. And Doug, they had funnel cake.
Nice. For free?
For free.
Okay.
For free.
Nice. Were you the only ship in port?
We were not the only ship in port. It was a Celebrity Reflection and was Symphony of the Seas, which is an Oasis class ship.
So that's like one of the largest cruise ships in the world. Are you able to tell that, do they have any dedicated celebrity beaches there?
No, they don't have anything dedicated.
Okay.
So you don't know if that guy to the next to you is on your ship or the next ship.
Okay.
It's kind of like Half Moon Cay. In rare cases, Half Moon Cay may have 2 ships. But the fact of the matter is, you don't have a dedicated area. Perfect Day at CocoCay, you just got to figure out what you want to do. If you want to pay the extra to go to the different costs, or if you want to ride that helium balloon, or if you want to go down the water slides. But even if you're doing it for free, you're going to have a blast.
And if you are doing that, you're a good thing too. Like if you wanted to do the balloon or the water slide or the aqua park, whatever it's called, before you cruise, both Celebrity and Royal Caribbean do offer discounts in their cruise planner. So look for those emails, because sometimes it's BOGO, sometimes it's up to 60% off. Like same thing with the restaurants, drink packages, things like that. Which, speaking of drink packages, if you had that, would it work on the island?
I believe it does. We didn't have a drink package, but just like what you were saying about these discounts before you sail, you definitely want to get that Wi-Fi if you're going to do that. Get that Wi-Fi ahead of time, so it'll save you a couple pennies.
And then your next port of call was Bimini. How was that?
Oh, Doug, let me tell you, I've been to Bimini twice already. Once on Virgin Voyages, which was absolutely seamless. You can use your bar tab with your wristband, because they have wristbands, they don't have card keys. So it was seamless. The food was free. You got to get there early if you want to sit by the pool or get a good beach spot. But Bimini was a 10 when we went on Virgin Voyages. When we went on the Carnival Liberty with my wife, my daughter, son-in-law, and 2 grandkids, it was more complex. What do you get? What don't you get? And it was a real mess. And so when we went with Celebrity, with Bimini, it was actually my wife of 40 years. She goes, I know what you want to do is just sit by the beach. I want to take a tour. So I reached out to Bimini Island Tours, this guy by the name of Max, and he took us around. He took us to the Dolphin Museum. He took us to Radio Beach. He took us to a local bakery. And then we saw something that is not a 10 for me, but it may be a 10 for somebody in the audience, a live conch demonstration where this gentleman had a knife and a shell, and he pulls the thing out, and he's seeing all this conch stuff. So it was very educational. And my wife loved it because when we go places, it was Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Martinique, St. Barts, St. Kitts. She wants to feel the culture, the native part of it. And so I acquiesced, and I'm glad I did.
Awesome. So you make your way back to Port Everglades. How was your debark?
That's another thing that's why I'm so passionate about Celebrity, because debarkation was seamless as well. Now, of course, Doug, when you and I go, we have our backpacks, zip, you don't have to leave the bags outside the door. Well, when I'm going with my wife, she's going to be packing a whole lot of stuff. So we left our bags out the night before. We were tag number 35. And so let me just say this while I'm saying it. When Marty and I went on the Icon, months ago, we walked right past our bags. We walked out, we did the facial recognition, and we were out. It's like, oh my gosh, where are my bags? We had to wait an hour before getting our bags on Icon. On this, I was a little calmer, a little more mindful, if you will. And so we had baggage tag 35, and we were supposed to get off the ship like at 9:30. So we immediately go to the Lido deck, and we had a very nice full breakfast. And then we didn't go to the theater. That was our design or our sign place. We went to right there on deck 6. There was a lounge area that nobody was sitting in, just right out there. And we sat and was able to stretch out and talk. And they called our number very quickly. We immediately went down. We got our bags, got a porter. And of course, I tipped the porter and got a cab. It's a little bit of a walk to get a cab, but it was only like $25. And of course, I tipped him $5 to take the cab from Terminal 25 back to the Fairfield Inn and Suites, but total seamless embarkation and debarkation, and the credit goes to those folks there. Just perfect.
This was the first Solstice class ship, so anyone considering sailing one of the 5 Solstice class vessels, do you have any first-time tips?
Oh, first-time tip is just, pack your patience, number one. I mean, even though it was seamless, there's always going to be quirks. This is what I messed up on. I drink Dr. Pepper. Mm-hmm. And so on some cruises, they will not allow you to bring bottled water or soda. They did allow me to bring a 12-pack of soda. And so I used my bungee cord to strap it to my little roll thing. Well, it was in the car, when we drove down from Jacksonville to Port Everglades, and I left it in the car overnight. Okay, you know where I'm going with this. Okay, and folks, we did not talk about this before we were doing this. The cans expanded because it was so hot. I'm rolling this thing, my bag and the sodas, and one of them exploded, and we're boarding the ship, and a lady goes, "Sir, your bag is leaking." Like, oh my God. And we're going up the gangway. So I go over to the left, I take the can out, I hid the can like on the gangway. And so we're going, and the bag was still soaking wet of Dr. Pepper. And so we go to the muster drill, and, I usually am pretty good with stuff. But on that, so if you're taking soda, which you're allowed to do, and you're allowed to take bottled water, just don't leave your soda in the car or you're going to have an accident.
At the top of the interview, you were saying that you are a Holland America fan, and you're like a 4 or 5 star mariner. So anyone who also sails Holland America and might be considering Celebrity, what would be the major difference between the two?
Listen, I'm 63. I'm very mobile. My wife is mobile. But the fact of the matter is Celebrity has fewer. That's a more active crowd. Now, were there scooters on the ship? Absolutely. But on Holland America Line, because they're longer cruises and they're going all over the world, you're going to have people that are retired. You're going to have people more affluent. And so that's the kind of demographic. But on Celebrity, the reason why it's my new favorite cruise line is because, number one, the food, I think the cabins, even though they're old school, were good. The ship, I love the ship, even though, but the fact is that it's the demographic that really makes it a 10 for me.
Any first-time tips?
My first-time tip is just book early. Everybody says, if I wait till the last minute, I'm going to get a great deal. Well, you may get a great deal, but you're going to be by a bow thruster or an anchor or under the show lounge or something. So book early, pick the cabin that you want, that you're going to be, close to the elevator, but not too far away. And then that's my number one tip to people. Don't wait till the last minute because you're not going to have a restful vacation.
I think it's also worth noting that those $49 upgrades or whatever it could be may not always be worth it.
An upgrade in the eyes of a passenger is not the same as an upgrade in the eyes of the cruise line, because there's a super secret formula. Nobody knows it, where the cruise line is looking, they're doing these upgrades, but then you may be under the jogging track or you may be by the show lounge. I mean, there's one time we were on Carnival Sunshine, YMCA, like at 10 o'clock at night, and my wife was fit to be tied. Oh, we got a great deal, but now we're in a bad location. So that's why, and that's a great tip. Do not, if they offer you an upgrade, it may not be good for you.
But also, too, and you might remember this, you booked me and my girlfriend on a sailing out of Venice a few years ago on the Norwegian Star.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, just give me the lowest rate. And it was like a sail away rate, I think they call it, or they did call it back then. Well, then Norwegian sent me an email saying, hey, do you want to upgrade? And I'm like, I asked her, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. So we upgraded to an ocean view, but it was underneath the nightclub.
Oh.
So we went from just a prime inside cabin, we would probably get amazing sleep, to being upgraded to an ocean view. So yeah, we had light in the room, but we were also under the nightclub, which was open until 2 or 3, because those Europeans like to party, and until 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was like, gosh, really? Going back to Bimini, so everyone loves that beach club that you were talking about.
Right.
And it is a nice beach club. I've been a couple of times, never on Virgin, but with Carnival, Holland America, and one other line. It might have been Celebrity. Can you jump on that tram and go to the Hilton and stuff, or can you only use the tram service if you're going to the beach club?
The tram stops at 3 different places. You stop at that golf cart place, and of course, those golf cart guys, they may say $100, they may say $80, and they say $150. I also heard that a golf cart caught on fire the other day. So please make sure you're going to get a golf cart. But I don't recommend getting the golf carts. Sorry, guys, but you don't know where to go. You don't know where the Dolphin Museum is. You don't know where Radio Beach is. So, definitely get a tour. But yes, there are different stops. You can stop at the Hilton there, the casino entrance, and then you go over to the club. So yes, there are different places you stop on that tram, and it's free. Again, Bimini, recent. I mean, this has only been around for several years, and that is one of my new favorite cruise ports too, because there's only one ship in there at a time. So you're not going to feel like totally overwhelmed. And there's only about 3,000 people on the island, a lot of culture. And one tip when you go there, ask for the local soda. The soda is off the chain. It's real good.
As we wrap this up, then, your final thoughts of Celebrity Reflection.
I would go back tomorrow. I recommend Celebrity, especially the 40-plus demographic. There's going to be fewer kids. They do have great kids clubs. And you're going to love the food. You're going to love the balconies. You're going to love the ship. You're going to love the itinerary. And the price, you can't beat it.
You can find Scott's videos at thecruisegenius.com. Scott, always a pleasure, my friend.
Appreciate you, Doug. Thank you.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,